Hi friends, so we have come forward and we have reached the last part of the book, that is part 4, how to change people without getting offense. Like this is something that is very essential to be known and to be learned, like because we have to deal with people, right? So the author just asked few questions like, have your employees lost interest in working under you? Don't let that drag your work down. Learn amazing principles for efficiently making people happy to work under you. And so let's start up with the fourth part, and first two principles will be taken up by Navneet.
With all going good, let us dive into the last part of the book, which depicts how, as a leader, we should take care of every individual's mistakes with whom we are working, without criticizing, not arousing any arguments, and getting the work done in an efficient and effective manner. The chapter 1, that is, how to begin if you find a fault. Like, it is always righteous to praise somebody for his good actions and then encouraging him to do better. Like many people, begin their criticism with sincere praise but then follow it with the word but and end up with the critical statement. For example, like suppose a student has passed his 10th exams but failed or scored poor marks in one subject, let's say maths. So, when a relative arrives home, he would say, Beta, you performed well in your class 10 examination, but you must have done better in that subject. Listening to this, the boy would feel bad of his failure, as the word but is only put there to cushion the insult coming. So the narrator explains, instead of saying the negative conjunctions, let's use positive word and and end up with positive vibes. Like it can be said as, Beta, you have performed well in your class 10 examination and further improving your that section, you can do miracles in your after exams. It is basically the idea that if you are going to criticize someone or their work, start by finding something praiseworthy with that person. Let them know how much you appreciate their hard work. Thus, a leader will always begin with praise and honest appreciation. That is the principle number 1. The second chapter, how to criticize and not be hated for it. The basic idea here is to not criticize the people directly. Then how do you do this? I will the first to admit it's not easy. One way you can do this is to lead by example. Don't ask a person to do something that you yourself are unwilling to do. Here the author shares an example of a still millionaire, Charles Schwab, who was paid $1 million salary a year largely because of his ability to handle people. Imagine that one day at noontime, Schwab was walking through one of his steel mills when he came across a group of men smoking directly under a sign that said no smoking. Charles Schwab might have pointed at that sign and said, Can't you read? No, absolutely not. Mr. Schwab chatted with the man in a friendly way, and finally he handed them cigars, the extra cigars, and said with a twinkle in his eye, I would appreciate it, boys, if you would smoke this outside. That's all he said. Those men realized that he knew that they had broken a rule. He had been such a good sport with them that they in turn wanted to be a good sports with him. The other example, like suppose you are an owner of a chain of multi-store departmental store, like, and one day while visiting your store, you see that your employee responsible for the counter is not there and is gossiping with other mates at another counter of the store, and you see that a customer is waiting for him. So without scolding or blaming the counter person at that point of time, you yourself goes and prepares the bill and happily greets the customer. And seeing you at the counter, the same employee realizes his mistake and refrains himself from doing so again. The point is that sometimes the people themselves are not aware of what mistakes or blunders they are doing. So making them understand peacefully may result in good decision. Thus, we reached our second principle, that is call attention to people's mistake indirectly, the principle number 2. The next chapter, chapter 3, is talking about your own mistakes first. The narrator says that Whenever you are in a position to criticize a subordinate, don't forget to remind them that you have also made far bigger mistakes in your career. Like, suppose you have a problem in time management and that your small brother who always wastes times in video watching and playing mobile games, so you would explain your brother that it's crucial time to study and give him example that though you are also not good at that time, but you are continuously upgrading in order to meet your aims. So, admitting one's own mistakes, even when one has not corrected them, can help convince somebody to change his behavior. Hence, you should show your belief in him and encourage him to do so. With this, I came to an end to my section.
Best way we can encourage other people to accept our issues, that is by talking about our own mistakes first. Moving forward to the next three principles. Hiren, over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Hiren Seta and I'm working as an IT professional for a decade now. Today I'm going to talk about principle number 4, 5 and 6. Author has provided different stories for all these three principles and I'm sure you would love those and understand it easily. So let's begin. Principle number 4. No one likes to take orders. A story of Mr. Owen D. Young, who was a businessman from America. When his subordinate was interviewed, he said Mr. Young never gave a direct order to anyone. He always gave suggestions. He would say, "Do you think what would work?" Or "What do you think of this?" A technique like this saves a person's pride and gives him or her a feeling of importance. It encourages cooperation instead of rebellion. Resentment caused by a brash order may last a long time, even if the order was given to correct an obvious bad situation. There is another story of Dan Santarelli, a teacher from Wyoming, Pennsylvania. He told a story about a wrongly parked car by a student. An instructor asked to the class, "Whose car is parking and blocking the driveway?" When the student who owned the car responded, the instructor screamed, "Move that car out and move it right now, or I will wrap a chain around it and drag it out of there." Here the damage is done. From that day on, not only did that student resent the instructor's action, but all the students in the class did everything they could to give the instructor a hard time and make his job unpleasant. He could have handled this differently if he would have asked in a friendly way and then suggested that if it were moved, other cars can get in and out easily. The student would have gladly moved it and neither he nor his classmates would have been upset and resentful. Now let's move to the principle number 5, which is let the other person save face. The story of General Electric Company, which faced with the delicate task of removing Charles Steinmetz from the head of department. Steinmetz, a genius when it came to electricity, was a failure as the head of department. Company didn't dare to offend him, so they gave him a new title. They made him consulting engineer of the General Electric Company, a new title for the same work he was doing, and let someone else take up the department. Steinmetz was happy. Another story of Anna Maison, a marketing specialist for a food baker. An assignment was given to her, but she made it with an error, and she mentioned how her boss treated her. Instead of insulting her, he thanked her for her work and remarked that it was not unusual for a person to make an error for a new project. He assured her, in front of her colleagues and he, that he has faith in her. Miss Maison said, "I left that meeting with my head in air with the determination that I could never let that boss of mine down again. We have no right to say or do anything that diminishes a man in his own eyes. What matters is not what we think of him, but what he thinks of himself. Hurting a man in his dignity is a crime." So now let's move to the principle number 6, which is how to spur a people on to success. A story of Pat Burlow, who runs a dog and pony show. Author loved to watch Pat train his dogs for his act. He noticed that the moment the dog showed a little improvement, Pat praised him and gave him meat and made a great to do about it. Author says, "Don't we use the same common sense when we're trying to change people that we use when trying to change dogs? Why don't we use meat instead of hunter? Why don't we use praise instead of condemnation? Let us praise even the small improvement that inspires the other person to keep on improving." Another story of a boy.
Hiren, the three principles that you have shared with us have been explained so very beautifully, and this is something that we can learn from, like all of us can learn from, right? So moving forward for the next three principles, Mera, I like you to enlighten us with the next three principles.
So the question is, why should we give a dog a good name? There was a doctor, he had a charwoman helping him. She used to clean his chamber and all, but with time the quality of her work dropped. Unlike us, the doctor did not scold her. Why are you not coming on time? You're not giving enough time. You're not doing the things properly. He didn't do this. He wrote a letter instead, a very respectful, a very beautiful letter he wrote, addressing her as my dear Bridget. And then the first thing he did was he thanked the lady for the service which she had been delivering till date. He really praised her first and her efforts, her dedication. And then he suggested that if you feel at all, you can give half an hour extra once a while, because 2 hours twice a week is maybe a less time to do the work more efficiently. The next morning, when the doctor visited his chamber, his table, his chair, his cups were shining like never before. So we have to initially set up a benchmark first, a good benchmark, a fine reputation to which the person can stand up. So the principle goes that give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. The second thing is, why should we make the fault seem easy to correct? Now there was a man, he wanted to learn dancing. For his fiancée wanted it actually, he was newly engaged. So he visited several teachers, and the teachers kept on pointing at his flaws. They made him feel like, man, you can never dance. Finally he met a teacher, and she said that you have a knowledge of rhythm and all you need is a few weeks of practice to dance fine when you are needed to. Now imagine a man who couldn't even call himself an average dancer till date is all of a sudden given hopes to dance fine when he is needed to dance. The man hasn't changed, his flaws have not disappeared all of a sudden. All changed was the teacher and the teacher's encouragement. The other teachers sucked out the confidence out of him, and we all know the power of encouragement and confidence. So this principle goes, use encouragement, make the fault seem easy to correct. Now, how can we make people glad to do what we want them to do? Because what happens with time, their interest maybe lessens. So here the author has a few steps to be followed, and they are: we have to be sincere. Do not promise anything that you cannot deliver. Forget about the benefits to yourself and concentrate on the benefits to the other person. Second, know exactly what it is you want the other person to do. Third, be empathetic. Ask yourself what it is the other person really wants. Fourth, consider the benefits that person will receive from doing what you suggest. Next, match those benefits to the other person's wants. And when you make your request, put it in a form that will convey to the other person the idea that he personally will benefit. So unless and until you show him his personal benefit, he won't like working under you. And once you prove it, he will work for his own personal benefit under your suggestions. So the last principle goes as, make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. Thank you.
Thank you, Meda. And so we come to the end.
Hi guys, I hope you must have liked our initiative of one book, 1 hour, 1 week. Also, we'd like to take a moment here to thank you guys for all your support and love as we hit our first 100 subscribers. Please like and share this video, and do subscribe to our channel to keep yourselves updated for the coming videos. Thank you for associating with us, and have a good day.